I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. What a wonderful day it is. What an extraordinary day it is in the state of California, and also a difficult day. We've just received word that Kamala Harris will not run for governor of the state of California. She will not run for governor of the state of California, leaving open clearly other options for her consideration because she garnered a tremendous amount of support in the last presidential elections. The reasons for her decision not to run for governor are still unavailable to us at this hour, but it is breaking news that Kamala Harris will not seek a term as governor of the state of California. But in my opinion, she ran one of the best and most effective campaigns for president of the United States that I have seen in a very long time. I cut my own legs, if you will, in my father's campaigns in 1984 and 1988, and have essentially participated in every presidential campaign since that time, including but not limited to being the national co-chair of the late Senator Paul Simon of Senator Barack Obama's campaign for the United States Senate. Barack Obama at that time was a state senator. He had lost a congressional election to Congressman Bobby Rush. And I was asked as a sitting congressman to consider being the co-chairman of the campaign with the late Senator Paul Simon in 2006. We were very successful in that campaign. The president-elect then asked me in 2008 to serve as one of his national co-chairmen of his campaign for president of the United States in 2008, and we were successful in that venture. But every campaign, from Gore to Dukakis, you name it, I've been in every presidential cycle, and I have never seen a presidential cycle quite like the one that Kamala Harris organized when Joe Biden withdrew from the presidential campaign. We're wishing Kamala Harris the very best and look forward to more details on her decision not to run for governor of the state of California, quite possibly keeping other options open, and I'm certainly interested in what those options will be. Yesterday, we had a fairly amazing conversation with Barbara Arnwine and Reverend Dix discussing the plight of Black men in the electorate. We've received some feedback. Many young Black men have reached us online, they've reached us personally, and they've simply said that Democrats are not speaking to their issues. And yesterday we had an in-depth conversation with Reverend Dix and attorney Barbara Arnwine, who is on the grind to save the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which is being threatened and jeopardized by a number of court decisions, some that came earlier in the week, strengthening and removing from the process the idea that individuals can file suits against some of these changes to the shape of our representation and the quality of our voices in both the federal government and state legislatures, and only the Department of Justice. Imagine that. Pam Bondi, with a gutted civil rights division. They have fired or let go more than 70 lawyers in the civil rights division of the Department of Justice, and therefore the Voting Rights Act itself, while not talked about, is something that we need to be concerned about, because during first Reconstructions, Democrats, liberals, and conservatives colluded after the 15th Amendment, Tilden Hayes Compromise, and then Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896. And even though we had elected a little more than a dozen African-American men to the Congress of the United States who were Lincoln Republicans out of loyalty to Lincoln, just like Martin Luther King Jr.'s father was a Lincoln Republican. I think that was the last generation of Lincoln Republicans that we had, because they believed in an expansive federal government that provided hope, opportunity to the newly freed Negroes, to the newly freed slaves, to the freedmen. And then after the Tilden Hayes Compromise and Plessy versus Ferguson, there were 0 Blacks in Congress by the end of that century. And it wasn't until the 1965 Voting Rights Act that African Americans and Hispanics and many others were able to gain seats based upon how districts are drawn to the Congress of the United States and the Senate of the United States, so that our voices and our history can be heard. And just a few weeks ago, we got wind in the state of Texas that they want to redraw 4 African-American congressional districts to strengthen, along with Donald Trump, Governor Abbott, to strengthen the Republican majority in the Congress of the United States. Now, everyone knows that at the end of a decade, the census takes place and then redistricting takes place shortly thereafter. What's actually happening here is now creating a competition between the state of California and the state of Illinois to respond to what Texas has done, and it could undermine African-American representation. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come back on 1580, we will talk more about these issues along with John Diggles.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time. Whenever news breaks, while we're on the air, it's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580. And we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. Thank you, thank you.
Y'all ready for Gillette's best shave? Try Gillette Labs with 5 ultra-thin blades, a built-in exfoliating bar, a precision trimmer on the back for sharp lineups. Gillette Labs delivers that smooth shave. Plus, and check this out, with 1 refill, you'll get up to 30 shaves. And on average, the blades last 50% longer than Gillette Fusion. Got something special coming up and you gotta look good? Check out Gillette Labs, the best a man could get. Gillette Labs also available in heated.
This is Secret Clinical Dominating Extra Stinky Stress Sweat. And this is regular deodorant. Secret Clinical in a heat wave. Oh, what a beautiful day. This is regular deodorant. Ugh, I can't. Secret Clinical with workout sweat. Let's run another marathon. And regular deodorant. How much more? Secret is the GOAT because nothing fights sweat better.
Stay fresher under pressure.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and that is Heartbreak Hotel. John Diggles is the Executive Vice President and Midwest GM of Mike Worldwide and chairs the firm's health and wellness practice. Throughout his career, John has helped global companies and new growth ventures utilize communications as a catalyst for expansion, change, and transformation. Known for breakthrough ideas, John has led culturally relevant, disruptive, integrated marketing campaigns that won top industry awards. As a CMO, he helped build a startup into an international wellness brand and negotiated the first jersey front sponsorship in North American professional sports history, a breakthrough deal with Major League Soccer. John is also an award-winning movie producer whose work has gained critical notice at the Sundance Film Festival and major festivals worldwide. He led successful effort by the movie industry to gain legislative approval of Illinois' first visual media production tax incentive, which attracted major studio projects, generated record-setting production revenue, and created thousands of new jobs with diverse hiring practices. John serves on the Business Advisory Council at the DePaul University Dryhouse College of Business and is an ambassador for the Chicago Economic Club of Chicago. John Diggles, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Jesse, it's good to be with you. Thank you.
John, I'm so glad that you're here. Listen, before we get to some of the other issues that we will cover in this hour, your thoughts on the departure of Kamala Harris from the California governor's race.
Well, I'd be really interested to see what she does and what she decides. She's had time to think this one through. Last time she was put in the middle of everything and she showed us she was ready for anything. So now it's time to see what is her plan, how she wants to chart her path. She certainly has earned that. And we'll be watching. And I hope she can take us on a new journey with her career.
You know, I find it somewhat fascinating. When my father ran for president in 1984, when he ran, he brought new diversity to the Democratic National Committee. In fact, I was appointed to the Democratic National Committee in either 1984 or 88 by the party chairman as a result of my introduction of my father at the DNC. But he brought with him Arab Americans and progressive Jewish Americans and Native Americans and women, and demanded diversity at every level of the DNC as a result of his campaign. He even advocated for change of the chairman of the party itself, given the changing demographics. And Ron Brown, my father's convention co-chair chairman in 1988, became chairman of the Democratic National Committee, a major concession to the millions of new voters that Jesse Jackson Sr. registered in 1984 and 1988. It just seems to me that while she's focusing on her career path and her future, that given the overwhelming support that African-American women showed the Democratic National Party in the last election, they did not abandon the party. They stayed with the Democratic Party, that her influence in the Democratic Party is not going anywhere, that she has a broad influence that ought to be respected, and she ought to claim some of the ground that she covered and earned herself.
Absolutely. And we were at the convention in Chicago. And what we saw, even on a very short runway, was here was a candidate who knew her issues. She understood the party. She understood how to absolutely connect there. The energy in the hall was off the charts. And I think given the scenario she was put into, she could not have performed better as a candidate. And so much of that running for president, you've been through this, Jesse, your family's been through this. It is harder than anybody knows. Running for office and running political campaigns is really taxing on a candidate and everyone as part of the process. It's also really invigorating to be part of that process. So I think she set an example on how to do that and how to run in a short period of time. And it'll be really interesting to see how she can continue to shape the party and our issues as well, how the party can better connect with the electorate and talk about issues that are affecting the electorate economically, health-wise, and deeper in our communities.
That is exactly the road I want to go down with you. But I do want to say this. On this program, we've had Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes, and a number of post-election books have been written showing some of the infighting and some of the behind-the-scenes activity that was taking place behind Kamala's campaign that are now and have come to the surface about the lack of cooperation from even former President Joe Biden, delaying his decision not to run, and whether or not he should have run in the first place and opened up the process so that multiple Democrats could have been involved in a primary process. Now we have Hunter Biden coming back in the fold within the last week or so, criticizing Democrats and those who called for Joe Biden to step aside. But there seems to be this misunderstanding or just a dereliction of duty generally, that Black women earned their place at the table. Joe Biden didn't just pick Kamala Harris. We demanded, and Black women demanded, that a Black woman be on the ticket. And if I remember correctly, there was a federal judge that was being considered who was a Black woman. There was Stacey Adams out of Georgia had been considered. Susan Rice had been considered. And then, of course, Kamala Harris was also part of that consideration. And their participation also led to the appointment of Ketanji Brown Jackson. So that effort was not lost upon the people that she brought into the process.
Exactly right. And should not be lost. And there was a lot of catching up to do for the party and for our government in that aspect. So I'd certainly like to see that momentum continue. It's taken a setback, certainly had a significant setback so far this year, but we absolutely have to have more drivers for that kind of change in the party.
John, the Democrats are at 26% approval rating in the last poll that I saw. So all the negative stuff that's been taking place for the last 6, 7, or 8 months or so since Donald Trump has been reelected president of the United States, it doesn't appear to be accruing to the benefit of the Democratic Party. John, what's going on?
Not talking to people on their terms, not talking to people on terms that matter, not acknowledging missteps that the party has made up until this point, not stepping forward to say, look, we have to clean our own house and make some things right, and then come to people on the right terms on what is really happening in their lives with the cost of living, lack of access to healthcare, communities being set back. You just don't see that at the top. It's all about, social media bantering and good quips and comebacks. But what about the people who voted for you, are in the party, have been counting on you? The party just is not making that connection, and connection matters. It's not just what you say, it's how you make people feel. Do you really care about them and what's happening in their lives?
I had a great friend on the program a few weeks ago. His name is John Lesiotis, and John is an advertising executive, now retired, but John has been kind of the 10th man in my thinking. And he's honest when he comes on our program about, we may have the right messenger, but we haven't found the right, we may have the right message, but we haven't found the right messengers to deliver the message. It seems like more political rhetoric, more new faces, more people are engaging the process, but there seems to be something that isn't clicking with the people, a galvanizing around a leader or several. Only one person, by the way, can be president of the United States at a time. So a leader who has picked up on the true sentiments of the American people. I think it was Bill Clinton who said, "I feel your pain." And people heard that.
Exactly
Are there any
right.
Democratic leaders that feel our pain?
Well, I think, I think it's a good point. It may be the right message. I still think there's work to do on the message. I think the messengers have to be authentic. I think that's been a challenge for the party. And then where we deliver the message. To me, the party has failed. This is not something, you don't just go on podcast 2 weeks before you take a vote, go on podcasts you've never been on. That dialogue has to happen in all of these places where you might have ignored it. The news media and consumption of news media has dynamically changed. And there are so many things we talk about so much less. In rural communities, for example, 83 million Americans listen to AM radio still. And in rural areas, AM radio is the number one. It is like the lifeblood of getting to them and telling them what's happening in their communities or what's happening nationally. So the party is not putting enough energy into being in the right platforms and the right places. And so messenger, place we look to deliver a message and connect, and of course that authenticity umbrella that has to be over everything. There's room to repair, regrow, and reimagine at every level here.
I want to kind of hone in on your expertise where you've cut your teeth in healthcare. We now have a big, ugly bill that doesn't come into effect until after the primaries and the general election of next year, when the pain will really arrive to the American people on a scale that we haven't seen probably since the Great Depression. Now, am I arguing there's going to be a depression after the midterm elections? No, I'm just simply saying that there are going to be fewer people, like as in tens of millions of fewer people receiving Medicaid, receiving critical SNAP benefits and critical programs after the election. And my sense is that Democrats aren't going to respond as voters in any great numbers until the pain is actually felt. Tell me if I'm wrong about that, John.
No, I think you're right about that, Jesse, but I also think the pain will be felt sooner. I'll tell you what we see so far.
Okay.
A lot of hospitals in underserved areas, the economics don't work for them now. They can already see what the cuts to Medicaid are going to do for them. So we are already seeing clinics close because of seeing those cuts come down the road. We already see, look, they couldn't repeal Obamacare. So instead, they're starving Obamacare of resources and funding. So we're already seeing companies leave the marketplace, and we're already seeing those premiums go much higher. Fewer companies, smaller pools, higher premiums. So I think we're going to see the pain earlier than the actual bill when the restrictions come in. And then that pain is going to accelerate. But, I tell anybody in our business, we know that, when you make these kind of changes for healthcare, everybody's going to feel it. Everybody's going to see some increase in premiums, some increase in insurance. And the reason being is that there's fewer people being proactively covered. So now more of us have to cover the higher bills that built on emergency and urgent care. And that's the most expensive part of healthcare.
Donald Trump and the architects of the MAGA movement have argued that this shouldn't be the business of the federal government, that returning power to the states, returning it to the cities, returning it to the counties is the proper place for the debate over from my perspective, the fundamental right to healthcare as a human right ought to be nationally coordinated. Do you see this problem emerging state by state and county by county in terms of how the pain itself will be felt?
I really do, because not every state will handle it with some standards, right? So again, when you have it running state to state, but you have a healthcare system that is national. You have healthcare systems and insurance companies that stretch nationally. So when you have this sort of, when you have the inconsistencies, if you will, of care, of proactive care, or of reach into communities, again, that's affecting prices nationally. To me, we can't go backwards and look at healthcare state to state. We need to look at our healthcare system, because our healthcare system is failing Americans. There's 100 million Americans right now that do not have access to a primary care physician. And yes, it differs state to state, but it is a problem in every state.
I want to hang around primary care physicians for a minute, because in African-American communities, in Hispanic communities, in low-income rural communities where they are fighting just to survive, one of the challenges that the National Institute of Health has had, one of the challenges that the Secretary of Health and Human Services historically has had, has been to lure doctors from medical school to these communities, to these underserved communities. And in the absence of a primary care physician, we end up with people not having primary care physicians, and therefore many Americans have never seen a primary care physician in their lives. They might find themselves at the clinic at Walgreens, at the clinic at CVS, getting some basic care unless something is discovered that they are sent to an emergency room. Is there any concern that under the present thinking of the Trump administration and the Democrats and Republicans in Congress that any solutions are coming forward anytime soon?
Well, unfortunately, this problem is getting worse, Jesse, because of the visa program. So almost a third of the physicians we have in the United States are foreign born. They come here from all over the world to study at our medical schools and then stay here. And a lot of those doctors are ones that go and serve underserved communities and rural communities, including urban and rural communities. So now, so many of them are having trouble. They're stuck in the visa program that they can't even get here. So now you have longer wait times, and you have communities that just won't get a primary care physician. Again, what you're doing there is setting up, you're not getting preventive care. You're putting people only where they can get emergency care, if that, when they need it. That's a bad business model, and that is a terrible model for the health of the country.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to Jesse Jackson on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is John Diggles. He's helping the healthcare industry navigate the messaging in the present climate as to how we are going to get the kind of care that we deserve. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580, more with John Diggles.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Senator Cory Booker says some fellow Democrats are, quote, complicit, end quote, in President Trump's agenda. On the Senate floor, he blocked a bipartisan law enforcement funding bill, arguing the funds would not be fairly distributed.
This, to me, is a problem with Democrats in America right now.
He also called it unconstitutional for Trump to pick which states get grant money. Attorneys for Sean Diddy Combs are asking a judge to release him on $50 million bail ahead of his October 3rd sentencing. In a letter, they argued there are, quote, exceptional reasons, end quote, he should not stay jailed after his July conviction for transporting women for prostitution. And President Trump is taking legal aim at former Vice President Kamala Harris and celebrities like Beyonce and Oprah, claiming they were paid for endorsements, which he says breaks campaign finance laws, but filings show only event cost reimbursements. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Compassion sponsorship means food, healthcare, education, and more for a child in poverty. And there are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year and their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393. Compassion sponsorship means food, healthcare, education, and more for a child in poverty. And there are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year and their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The shooting Monday in a New York City building that houses the NFL's national headquarters has a very local connection. Shane Tamura, the identified man who shot and killed 4 people, was a running back for 2 Southern California high school football teams. Tamura played 3 years at Golden Valley High School in Santa Clarita. He transferred to Granada Hills Charter School in the San Fernando Valley for his senior year. The 27-year-old Tamura fatally shot himself after his shooting rampage. A letter found in Tamura's pocket indicated he may have been looking for NFL personnel in the Manhattan office building. In his letter, Tamura blamed the NFL for his CTE symptoms, a brain disease linked to head trauma. In the letter, Tamura requested to have his brain examined after the autopsy. Monday's tragedy could have been a lot worse. Tamura took the wrong elevator while trying to find the NFL's offices. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, he does whatever it takes to keep the power on in his community. And he wants a partner like Grainger who does the same. Grainger offers the professional-grade products he needs, from voltage detectors to harnesses to hard hats, plus fast, dependable delivery, so he can rise to every challenge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Sometimes an identity threat is a ring of professional hackers. And sometimes it's an overworked accountant who forgot to encrypt their connection while sending bank details.
I need a coffee.
And you need LifeLock, because your info is in endless places. It only takes one mistake to expose you to identity theft. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. According to CNN, former Vice President Kamala Harris announced Wednesday that she would not run for governor of California in 2026, ending questions about her interest in the role, but raising new ones about the 2024 Democratic presidential nominee's plans for the future. Quote, "For now, my leadership and public service will not be in elected office," end quote. She said in a statement released Wednesday, quote, "I look forward to getting back out there and listening to the American people, helping elect Democrats across the nation who will fight fearlessly, and sharing more details in the months ahead about my own plans," period. That doesn't sound, John Diggles, to me like Kamala Harris is going anywhere.
I think she'll surprise us. I was reading a couple articles at the break, Jesse, and the fact that she said, look, I've got announcements coming up and they're not about 2028. I think she has plans here. She knows what she's doing, and I'm excited to see what the plays are.
John, let's talk about rural healthcare for a moment. And when the big, ugly bill becomes law, I've spoken to mayors and I've spoken to people around the country who are concerned that their dialysis centers are closing, that critical care, including but not limited to cardiac care, that increasingly first level 1 trauma centers, hospitals, emergency rooms are moving further and further away from where they live. Therefore, the transportation in the event of a critical care need can be as long as an hour drive, and therefore the life expectancy of a critical care patient may be significantly reduced as a result of not having proximity to these facilities.
I mean, this is really a very alarming development in what has already been an alarming disparity, sense of disparities. Almost 50% of U.S. counties are heart health deserts. That means that there's not a cardiologist within 90 miles of people living in 50% of U.S. counties. 37% of U.S. counties are considered maternal care deserts. That means that in those counties, in those areas, you cannot get proper care for pregnancy, for maternal care during that time. So you have these, and then you have a bill that could cause, because of its cut to Medicaid, could really hit the economic flow, the economics of rural hospitals, and cause as much as a third of them to close. So you're talking now about wider gaps across. And then when you get to emergency care, you know, when you're putting someone in a helicopter, you're trying to get them to emergency care, every second, every minute counts. And to take those resources away from communities that have already suffered through long-time health disparities, there's just no other way to put it, that these are life and death decisions and that are going to absolutely affect people, and we need to be honest about it.
One of my grave concerns is trying to draw the parallel between what will be lost in far-reaching rural areas, but also what will be lost in urban areas where Medicaid is a significant part of critical care. For example, in the city of Chicago, and I know this to be true in Los Angeles as well, we have hospitals whose reimbursement rates are as high as 55% tied to Medicaid dollars. That is, they primarily serve the indigent. And if in fact they cannot serve the indigent, organ transplantations, cancer treatments, critical care will simply be eliminated from these facilities. And whether or not the facilities themselves can survive is clearly of major concern in urban areas as well. There is a relationship between what's happening in the rural area and the urban areas as well. My question for you is, can rural dwellers come together with suburban and urban dwellers, move beyond their red hats and their blue hats to the idea that we all need healthcare of equal high quality?
Absolutely. We need to take our hats off to each other, tip the cap to each other, and so that if I make your healthcare better, my healthcare can be better too. You mentioned Chicago, right? In Chicago, Chicago's one of the places we have some of the some of the top healthcare systems in the country. Rush University Health System is on the west side of Chicago. It's one of the top medical systems in the country. Yet the west side of Chicago is one of the stroke capitals of our country. So people are suffering and dying of stroke at a higher rate, which stroke is already alarming rate, but people on the west side of Chicago are suffering strokes and dying of strokes at a higher rate than the alarming national average. They look out their windows at one of the best healthcare systems in the country, and they cannot get access to it. So the economics of healthcare have really locked a lot of people out. So in urban areas, we have underserved areas. In rural areas, you can't get even access or within miles of care or specialty care. And so when people come together and demand this change, it's the only way it's going to happen. And I'll also say that, for anybody listening to this, whether or not you're impacted by disparities, you will feel it or you're going to feel it. The healthcare system is in crisis. There's a physician shortage. There's a burnout crisis among medical professionals. And of course, we all feel the economic crisis of the healthcare system. The only way to solve those things is to make the overall system better for everybody.
My dad called it, at least the politics of it, the Al Jolson syndrome. That is, we can paint a problem black. Ronald Reagan used the concept of welfare queen. But the fact of the matter is there were more whites on welfare than there were blacks. They've made Medicaid to be the Obamacare problem. But the fact of the matter is there are more white Americans on Medicaid than African Americans. As long as they can paint the problem like Al Jolson did, black, they throw oranges and apples and tomatoes at Al Jolson, but in the final analysis, he goes back to the green room, he washes the makeup off of his face, and he has two bloody eyes as a result, but he's still a white man, and he too suffered after laughing at black people. It seems to me that when we pull back, if you will, pull back the onion of how it is being positioned in the body politic, that somehow the Medicaid recipients are lazy, that they need a work requirement, that they are the ones who should replace immigrants in the fields. That's what the Secretary of Agriculture said before the Congress most recently when asked, where are the agricultural workers going to come from? She said, well, it should be a work requirement for Medicaid recipients, as if someone in urban areas wants to stand out here in this heat and pick tomatoes, lettuce, and cotton. It just doesn't make sense to me, John.
It doesn't make sense. And there's been way too much of this divisive language that has kept us from solving key parts of healthcare. There's been way too much of putting people into groups and not really looking at a system overall that continues to fail people. And when we look at things that we can come together on, we can come together on education. The more we know about our health, the better we can be proactive in taking care of ourselves and each other. We must come together on empathy. The more we can understand what people in rural communities and urban communities, or wherever you live, you're even affected by disparities, and have empathy for each other, will drive that change. And then we must come together on the things we're going to demand and participate in with the healthcare system. What's driving up costs? How can we fix it? And how can government and private sector work together for it? Those things really have to come from patients demanding more. We're seeing this happen, but we have to accelerate it because of the pain that we know is here and coming already.
I'm wondering in this moment if, and I know this is a stretch, I'm wondering about John F. Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy having gone into the South, and I know we're coming up on our break in just a moment. And when they held up a young, poor, emaciated black child, the country said, poor black child. But then when they went to Appalachia and held up a poor white child, the nation responded, oh, there just can't be poverty like that in America today. And this was the 1960s, right? I'm wondering if there is a way to bring the lights to white poverty. I think William Barber has talked about it in his book called White Poverty. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More with John Diggles when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
You have cancer. The 3 words no one wants to hear. Of the cancers that impact our community, lung cancer is the most dangerous. More people succumb to lung cancer than colon, breast, and prostate combined. Black men are 12% more likely to develop lung cancer, and cases for Black women are rising. Early detection and comprehensive treatment is the best way to beat this dreaded disease. Providence is a research leader in multi-cancer early detection, offering blood tests that identify fast-spreading cancers that don't show symptoms in early stages. The Providence Los Angeles Integrated Network Cancer Program determines best protocols for each patient, interacting with specialists who share experiences, perspectives, and new findings specific to each case. With over 1,000 board-certified physicians, including top oncologists, surgeons, radiologists, and nurse specialists, Providence delivers whole-person care that understands your culture, values, preferences, and priorities. So, if you hear the words, "you have cancer," all you need is faith and providence.org/cancer.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black out the Dina is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at kbla1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from Nitsa in the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy. In 2011, I founded Wesley Financial Group with one goal in mind: to help honest folks out of their timeshares permanently. Today, I run Wesley with my 2 sons, a real family business, treating every client and every employee like we'd want our own family treated. That philosophy has helped us grow into the largest, most trusted timeshare cancellation company in the United States. Fortune magazine even recognized us as one of the best places to work. Why? because we genuinely care. In fact, some of our former clients were so moved by their experience working with us, they joined our team so they could help others to timeshare freedom. If you're stuck in a timeshare, give us a call. Let our family help your family.
Call Wesley now for your free timeshare exit kit. 800-687-7979. That's 800-687-7979. 800-687-7979.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk. Our first special guest in this hour has been none other than John Biggles. Tomorrow, Reverend Dr. Wallace Gator Bradley from Disciple to Disciple. That is, Black Gangster Disciple to Disciple. Yes, he is a minister ordained now with a PhD. Reverend Dr. Wallace Gator Bradley will be our very special guest in the first hour. John Biggles, however, is our guest today. And John, I want to pivot now to this idea of strategies for maintaining our health. This is our final segment on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show with John Biggles. And John, I want to welcome you forward to the show.
Thank you, Jesse. It's good to be with you and your audience.
I always ask my guests to end on a word of hope. And I know that we have about 8 minutes left in the program. And so there are strategies for maintaining our health. I assume both mental as well as physical health, but certainly strategies. And I'd like you to provide your word of hope in the context of the strategies that we might be able to employ personally, collectively, to be able to prepare ourselves what's in front of all of us.
Well, thank you, Jesse. I think it's an important question. There are not easy answers to it. But when we see the strategies that really work are to invite people to invest in knowing more about their health. The more you know, the questions to ask your doctor, the care you could take care of yourself, the disparity you live that's around you, the more you can help take action on it. So that sense of awareness, education is really, really key. An educated patient can be a powerful patient, can get the doctor, can push the doctor, and can also push the health system. And that could bring a lot of us together. The other key thing that we're working on, the reason I started this company, Ascent Strategy Group, is getting people more tools, Technology right now has made leaps and bounds in healthcare. There are tools that we can have not just at the doctor's office, but at home that are clinical grade tools. I'll give you an example. Look, everybody knows the first thing you go to the doctor, you have your blood pressure monitored, right? That's something that every one of us should be doing, not just check. There's a difference between checking your blood pressure and monitoring your blood pressure.
What's the difference, John?
The difference is how often we do it. We shouldn't be doing it a couple times a year. That's something we should do at least a week. I mean, talk to your doctor. There's people that should do it every day. But most of us should be doing it a lot more because we can notice it. Blood pressure tells you about a lot of your risk and a lot of things before they happen. We just came out and helped launch a blood pressure monitor, and built into that blood pressure monitor for use at home is AI-powered AFib technology. That's atrial fibrillation. So why is that important? Atrial fibrillation, where your heart is not quite in rhythm, affects millions of people that are undiagnosed. That means they're living with a higher risk of stroke. And the surprising thing is they're also living with higher risk of dementia because that's interrupting blood flow to your brain. So the more we can catch that and people can take action on it, that's the way to help solve some of these major health gaps. So the technology is very hopeful. We have to get people access to it. And then I'll just say, Jesse, the third thing we can all do is support each other and understand when it comes to healthcare, despite all the politics that can be divisive, us seeing it rural counties to urban counties, we are really, truly all in a system together. And the more we understand that, embrace it, the more we can drive meaningful change from the patient perspective to push the health system to be better.
I want to, if I can, John, in part of the remaining few minutes that we have, Dr. King, on this question of health, seems to also suggest when, as Johnny Mack, who is a regular contributor on our program, says, when he digs deeper into the philosophy of King, that somehow the idea of love and forgiveness and caring for our neighbor is also part of our mental and physical health. That to hate is detrimental to our health. That to feel negatively and harbor resentment towards people who are different than we are contributes to our health. And I'm not just saying our psychological health. I'm also talking about our physical health. You have to go out of your way to hate somebody. And it does bring pressure in your life. It does bring animus in your life. It does bring resentments and regrets into your life. And all of that can contribute to real dis-ease. Dis-ease, disease, dis-ease and disease are the same problem. John?
I think that's very true. Dr. King in Chicago, as a matter of fact, said he made a very powerful correlation between health, equity, and disparities and injustice. It's always stuck with me, the fact that he tied it at that level, and that's what it meant at the time. It still means that, and we still have a long way to go. And when it comes to the fact that our mental health and our mental well-being affects deeply our physical health, we've accepted this about stress a long time ago. Stress causes inflammation in our bodies. If you feel hot, like you're retaining heat, you can't quite digest. All of those things are signs of inflammation within our bodies. Hate does the exact same thing. It starts to tax us physically and starts to exacerbate whatever we're going through health-wise, to put more stress on us, increasing blood pressure, causing all the other things that become chronic conditions that add up over time to real health crises for us. So the more we get proactive and educated about taking care of our own health and empowered, we can not only reset the way we think about it and treat ourselves, but also push the health system to do better by us as well.
John, I've heard lots of sermons. I grew up in the church and I hang around a lot of preachers, and I've heard dozens of sermons over the course of my life about the Good Samaritan and the great work that the Good Samaritan did on the road to Jericho. But in this moment, it occurs to me that with the work that he did, because of his ethic, he felt better about himself, that he was compelled to do it, that he probably went home that night and got a great night's sleep knowing that he helped a stranger, and that there were real benefits to him personally, beyond how we've heard the story exegeted in our churches. There were real benefits associated with that. And I'm not downplaying the significance of what the fundamental tenets of that story represent. I'm also saying there are benefits. I was somewhere the other day, and I know our time is almost up in this hour. I was somewhere the other day, and an older lady was trying to get in her car, and I just stopped what I was doing, and I went over because she looked like she was going to fall on the rocks. She was very grateful. But when it was over, I said to myself, I feel good that she didn't fall in my presence. And I think that's also part of it. John Diggles, thank you for being on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Jesse, thank you so much. I want to congratulate you on the show. It's a great show. I appreciate you diving into topics and having me on today. I think your audience is better for it. By lifting all of our spirits, we're a little bit healthier today when we have these kind of conversations. So thank you very much for taking us.
I look forward very much to having you come back on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We will be together in the next hour. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Senator Cory Booker says some fellow Democrats are, quote, complicit, end quote, in President Trump's agenda. On the Senate floor, he blocked a bipartisan law enforcement funding bill, arguing the funds would not be fairly distributed.
This, to me, is a problem with Democrats in America right now.
He also called it unconstitutional for Trump to pick which states get grant money. Attorneys for Sean Diddy Combs are asking a judge to release him on $50 million bail ahead of his October 3rd sentencing. In a letter, they argue there are, quote, exceptional reasons, end quote, he should not stay jailed after his July conviction for transporting women for prostitution. And President Trump is taking legal aim at former Vice President Kamala Harris and celebrities like Beyonce and Oprah, claiming they were paid for endorsements, which he says breaks campaign finance laws, but filings show only event cost reimbursements. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Compassion sponsorship means food, healthcare, education, and more for a child in poverty. And there are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year and their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The shooting Monday in a New York City building that houses the NFL's national headquarters has a very local connection. Shane Tamura, the identified man who shot and killed 4 people, was a running back for 2 Southern California high school football teams. Tamura played 3 years at Golden Valley High School in Santa Clarita. He transferred to Granada Hills Charter School in the San Fernando Valley for his senior year. The 27-year-old Tamura fatally shot himself after his shooting rampage. A letter found in Tamura's pocket indicated he may have been looking for NFL personnel in the Manhattan office building. In his letter, Tamura blamed the NFL for his CTE symptoms, a brain disease linked to head trauma. In the letter, Tamura requested to have his brain examined after the autopsy. Monday's tragedy could have been a lot worse. Tamura took the wrong elevator while trying to find the NFL's offices. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time. Whenever news breaks, while we're on the air, it's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580. And we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. And I thank you, thank you.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. In this hour, joining us momentarily will be our regular contributor, Dr. S. Todd Yeary, who has 1 foot in the pulpit and 1 foot in the courtroom. And chances are right now at this hour, Dr. Yeary is somewhere in a courtroom rushing to get to our show. Holy mackerel, Dr. Yeary is in his car rushing to get to the show in traffic. Hi, Dr. Yeary. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for putting all of me on blast. I am in wonderful Chicago rush hour traffic on the drive. So what can I tell you?
You're going to be there for a minute. So
we might as well take our time then.
Dr. Yeary, I had a wonderful conversation yesterday with Dr. Attorney Barbara Arnwine and Reverend Raymond Dix. And on this program, we talked about Black men I'm trying to arrive at a deeper understanding of what's going on with black men, including the young ones who are not voting. And we've got this history from 1619 to the present, and we go through all of the luminaries of our history who've paid the price for us to have the right to vote. But somehow, this generation, based upon the facts of the last election and several of the previous elections, have either not voted. A significant number of them have been making the case for Donald Trump. And I've been trying to peel back the onion a little bit to figure out a little bit more about what's going on. And I think I'm onto something. And I talked about it yesterday, and I want to broach it with you. You know, when I was growing up and I would go outside, my mother insisted that my brothers and I were home by the time the street lights came on. When the street lights, you better be in this house by the time these street lights come on.
That's in
Now,
the handbook. That's in the Black Parent Handbook.
that's in the handbook. Okay. So I never really understood or thought that my mother, in her own way, could have been in those moments reflecting upon her life experiences, but more specifically, Emmett Till. That is, you cannot be out in these streets after dark. That is, any young man who's out here in these streets is subject to a confrontation with somebody in the streets, or maybe even come into contact with law enforcement. And then I pressed my thinking a little bit further to the idea that young black men, and yes, some of our sisters as well, are born into the world from the moment they show up in the birth ward or at home care or however you might have been born into the world. We are born into the world with probable cause. In addition to whatever your mama calls you, your daddy named you, in addition to that, you showed up in the world as a young African American man with probable cause, wearing a hoodie, carrying Skittles. George Floyd. Professionals like yourself, oftentimes having to remind people that you are a pastor and a lawyer, and it still doesn't escape the fact that you are black. So from womb to tomb, black PhDs, black doctors, black folks with no degrees, there is a presumption and a probable cause in your life that is nearly inescapable as an American. Dr. Yuri.
and now you want me to jump in on that while I'm sitting in traffic. Let's see. First, let's kind of peel back the disengagement.
First, please be careful. All right.
Yeah. No. I'm 10-2, and since I'm moving a robust 0 miles an hour, I think I'm in good shape.
Okay.
The issue of disengagement, disaffect with the system and a process that seems to either not work for or even work against the interests of young black men from certain neighborhoods, whatever that frame is. I think part of the challenge has been we've made voting the one and done cure for all issues dealing with the lived reality of black folk in America. It is a significant piece. And it's a significant piece because it goes right to who gets to decide more than anything else what happens with public dollars to address private interests. What we don't give is a full menu. So you sit down at dinner on Sunday. Mama would make dinner. Some days the entree would be amongst my favorites. Sometimes it was beef liver and gravy, much to my chagrin.
Not mine, though.
Well, listen, you can have mine. I
I
promise you,
love
you
you.
can have mine. But and you weren't getting up from the table until you ate everything on your plate, whether you liked it or not. The problem is we've tried to make our civic engagement a one-course meal instead of having a full entree of tools, voting, engagement with elected officials, organizing, demonstrating, litigating. We've gone back to this notion that somehow or other we can change our reality by microwave action. And that's not how this thing works. And so I think part of that is the beginning frustration. And then we can get back to you having my beef liver, because we can talk about a whole lot of other stuff about what's going on in the lived reality of a generation that is significantly detached, distressed, and even disappointed and disgusted even with what's going on in our politics.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, more with Dr. S. Todd Yeary on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Y'all ready for Gillette's best shave? Try Gillette Labs with 5 ultra-thin blades, a built-in exfoliating bar, a precision trimmer on the back for sharp lineups. Gillette Labs delivers that smooth shave. Plus, and check this out, with 1 refill, you'll get up to 30 shaves. And on average, the blades last 50% longer than Gillette Fusion. Got something special coming up and you gotta look good? Check out Gillette Labs, the best a man could get. Gillette Labs also available in heated.
This is Secret Clinical dominating extra stinky stress sweat. And this is regular deodorant. Secret Clinical in a heat wave. Oh, what a beautiful day. This is regular deodorant. Ugh, I can't. Secret Clinical with workout sweat. Let's run another marathon. And regular deodorant. How much more? Secret is the GOAT because nothing fights sweat better.
Stay fresher under pressure.
Give people what they want.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at kbla1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Hi, everyone. My name is Raquel Graham, and I have a big announcement to make. I have my own radio show. It debuts on KBLA 1580 on August 2nd, and it is called Entrepreneuring. I'm an inventor, a Shark Tank winner, entrepreneur for over a decade, and a proud mom of 2. I created this show because I know firsthand that entrepreneurship doesn't have just one look. Entrepreneuring celebrates what building a business really looks like. Big, medium, small, and micro. Some of us are running multi-million-dollar operations. Some of us are braiding hair in our kitchens. We're bakers, grant writers, laundromat owners, event promoters. Mark your calendars. Please tune in August 2nd, KBLA 1580 at 1 p.m. Pacific time. No question is too big or small. Let me know what you'd like for me to cover. See you then.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest is none other than Dr. Reverend S. Todd Yeary. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Always good to be with you. It doesn't matter if I'm stuck in traffic or not. I'm hanging out with you on Wednesday afternoon.
I appreciate you, Doc. Listen, we were talking about lived reality for Black men just before the break, and I couldn't help but think about, as I've stated yesterday, and I continue to state, that lived reality is from womb to tomb. I mean, there's no expectation that we'll go to school. There's no expectation that we'll graduate from school. When we graduate from school, 16, 17-year-olds, everyone, just about everyone, has a law enforcement experience. You can't drive in a car with all your boys. That's probable cause. You can't walk through a shopping mall or shopping market or Walmart or any of these stores around our country without being followed by security like you come in to take something. You can't walk into a high-end store without somebody asking you, why are you here, or can you afford to be here? It just seems to me that every single day in our lives, in fact, James Baldwin said it is impossible to live in America as a Black person and not wake up every day in a form of outrage, in experiencing some form of rage. And when I peel back the onion on Black men as a Black man, it just seems to me that we're born into the world with probable cause typed on our forehead. We're born into the world with a presumption that does not include the benefit of the doubt, but the same benefit of the doubt is afforded everybody else. Doc, walk us through this lived experience.
Let's start with the label. Um, depending on which era you may have been born, you'll find that simply by looking at your birth certificate, there is a limitation imposed by law when they finally give you kind of a legal acknowledgement that you exist. So when I look at my birth certificate and the category that says race, my race is colored. Colored has a particular frame because they could not tell whether my father was white or Black. They assumed he was white. I'm being Black. My race is colored. That's a curious reality. What is clear is that I'm not white. And so the reality is whatever your classification is racially, if you are not either Caucasian or white in the legal document that is assigned to you at birth, you are starting out with constraints on entitlement, participation, opportunity, expectation. When we talk about the notion of education, we have to remember that there were laws on the books, some of them still have not been legally repealed in Southern states, that said Black people could not be educated. As a matter of fact, I think it may have been North Carolina. You went to school there, I grew up there. That if a white person was caught teaching a Black person to read, the white person would get 5 lashes. The Black person who wanted to read would 50 lashes. Now let's think about it. It is a greater punishment to have the desire to learn than it is to have the willingness to teach someone to learn. Let's think about those constraints. Let's think about those punishments that are imposed that then alter how we see not only our opportunities, but our willingness to participate in pursuit of them. That is ingrained. And so when we think about America, it's like, I'm a pound cake guy, but I don't just eat anybody's pound cake. Because number one, my pound cake is probably going to have so much stuff in it that's going to address cholesterol that we're going to have a whole problem. So I need eggs and butter. I'm a dairy guy in my pound cake. The pound cake of America today is only what it is because of the ingredient of the contribution of Black people. And if you take Black people out of this mix, you don't have pound cake, you have crumbs. And I think this notion that we don't know our own history, our own contribution, how these processes are designed to work, what is our role to participate in them, those all come into play as to why we find ourselves in such perilous circumstances where we would have a popularity contest called an election as opposed to a policy contest that's going to accrue to the benefit of what our communities need.
Mm, mm. I gotta press, because when we keep asking our brothers to vote, they're also saying neither party is addressing their issues. Well, when you ask the question, what are your issues? A vast or large number of them, whether they have actually been tried or convicted, have had some experience that is tied to the presumption, the idea of presumption, of prejudgment. And then, of course, there's a post judgment. If you open your mouth and you sound halfway intelligent, okay, we can get beyond some of the presumption. Yesterday, I was with my girlfriend, and she left her purse on a table, and I needed the car keys. So I unzipped her purse and I grabbed the car keys. And an older white couple said to me, "That's not your purse." I said, "It's not, but these are my keys." And then fortunately my girlfriend showed back up, and they said, "Oh, okay, you guys are together, right?" I actually thanked them because they were looking out for her purse. But in that moment, they didn't see a congressman or former congressman. They didn't see a law degree. They didn't see a seminary degree. They didn't see my service in the US Congress. They didn't see 13 honorary doctorates. They didn't see my resume. They just saw I did not belong in that purse. And in that moment, that couple made presumptions, they made prejudgments. There was a post judgment after I explained that these are my keys. But a brother is not given the benefit of the doubt, bro. And that right there starts more often than not every day when someone's pulled over. First, a stop occurs, and then the police officer says he smells something, whether he does or not. He might ask a person to exit the vehicle. He might even unconstitutionally ask them for permission to search their car, to open their trunk. And all of this is based upon what he thinks he smelled, or music that was too loud, or the hairdo of the driver. And there are times when the driver is a lawyer or a minister or a doctor just like yourself. And this police officer may not even be college educated, may be fresh out of high school in a uniform, who went to a roll call just 20 minutes earlier and says at the end of the roll call, his sergeant says, "Good hunting." And what are they hunting for? They're hunting for the presumption. They're hunting for probable cause from someone who looks like us. Who speaks to that,
Yeah.
Tom? Who speaks to that in the body politic?
Well, so a couple of things. One, the reality is as you have spoken it, described it, experienced it. What's curious to me about going in the purse for the keys in 2025, I'm curious as to how they know that that might not have been your purse, because that's not a given. Right. So we can start with that. They already jumped to a conclusion that is inconsistent with the times, and so
Oh,
now
no,
they get
that
to
was my purse. I was supposed to say.
how did they know? I mean, did they watch you walk in with it? Did they see your name written on it? The fact that there are certain interests that are detached from our experience who get to impose themselves on the interpretation of our reality is problematic. And so whether it is the otherwise, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt, well-meaning, although intrusive and nosy, people watching what's going on, trying to see if you the dude that's getting ready to run off with the purse, eh, that does some stuff. But then the other part is that the rules have always been written that we have to always deal with the suspicion. even before we get to probable cause. Reasonable suspicion is the standard. What's reasonable? What's unreasonable? How do you determine it? Is it because you're a light-skinned black dude in a public place around a purse and they can't read what you're wearing, that somehow or other your economic circumstances might put you in a wanting position where you would want to take something of value from someone else? It is actually that ingredient. Those are the things that are the crumbs. The reason we don't come away in a much more unfortunate circumstance is because of the way we have to operate in reality, right? To be able to navigate these situations in such a way that we don't lose our dignity. Because in some places, somebody telling me I can't go in what I know belongs to someone who's attached to me, and we have an understanding that that's how we operate. They might have been told mind their business. Uh, but but then it would have been offensive, because then it's like, Negro, you're not staying in your place. So when we are navigating these spaces, we have to be mindful that in that backdrop, the frustration about neither party meeting the expectation, that's always the ideal.
But Todd,
But
that's the point. But Reverend, that's the point. That by the time a young African American male is 18, they're a navigator. And no one has told them that their life would be a constant navigation of every circumstance and event in their life. My mother, I think, was trying to tell it to me when she said, be home when the street lights come on. I didn't interpret that as a lifelong navigation, but the truth of the matter is that's exactly the beginning of a lifelong navigation as a black man.
And then the response is, then what do you do about it? And this is where your father's words ring in my ears when I would often talk about the frustration of that very reality. And he would say, now's not the time to get disgusted. Now's the time to get determined. And what does that determination look like in terms of how it is acted upon in terms of our civic engagement? Granted, neither party is meeting it. What are we going to do? Are we going to find an alternative? Are we going to, if we disconnect, that's not going to change the fact that over 4 years, the government's going to find a way to commit $20 trillion of public money, whether that's actual cash money or debt, to address private interests. That gap doesn't get closer simply because we get frustrated and decide that we've had enough of it. Unless we're going to have a solution attached to our frustration that we can act upon as a collective, then really what we're doing is we're relegating ourselves to, quite honestly, grumbling as opposed to strategizing. And that's where I think we've got to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable. Yes, be true to our frustration. Acknowledge the fact that the reality is what it is, but the answer to the question, so what, is for us to determine and no one else.
Yeah, I want to hang around this navigation for a moment, because when I see and kick it with my boys and I'm not on the radio, I'm going to be honest with you. When I'm kicking it with them, my dialect is a little bit different because it just is what it is. On the radio, in the radio, I try to speak the King's English as best I can, but I get really ignorant really quick when I'm not on the radio. Ask Tavis, he'll tell you. I'm just simply saying it's a navigation. I've seen some people eat chicken with finger foods when they hang in with me, and I've seen a Negro try to eat chicken with a fork when he's in another crowd. He's navigating. I've seen his behavior when we're playing basketball in the neighborhood. I've seen the same brother in another environment. This Negro's voice change. Now, that's part of the navigation too. In other words, some of us actually believe we belong because we've, quote unquote, navigated the space to our benefit. But so many of our brothers and sisters who have no navigating skills whatsoever, they're just a presumption that they don't belong. There is probable cause that follows them all of their life. And I'm suggesting to you, Dr. Yuri, that the standard itself has to change. We may not be able to shout and call everything racism, but we can certainly say that I was born into probable cause, and I was born with a presumption that it emanates from you, and I want to change it. I want to bring it to your attention. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We have Dr. S. Todd Urey when we come forward. More on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Former Vice President Kamala Harris is officially ruling out a run for California governor. In a statement, she said she gave it serious thought but decided not to enter the race. Harris says her focus for now will be on supporting Democrats nationwide rather than holding elected office. The announcement keeps speculation alive about a potential presidential run in 2028. Shannon Sharpe is out at ESPN just weeks after settling a rape lawsuit. The network reportedly ended the deal, though Sharpe denies any wrongdoing, calling the suit a shakedown. And the D.C. Council is back continuing hearings on the Commander Stadium proposal. Tuesday's 14-hour session saw hundreds speak, some eager to bring the team back for the perks, others worried about being left out. Black Mayor Muriel Bowser and team reps will testify. The council's first vote is set for Friday and needs 7 yes votes to move forward. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Compassion sponsorship means food, healthcare, education, and more for a child in poverty. And there are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year and their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The shooting Monday in a New York City building that houses the NFL's national headquarters has a very local connection. Shane Tamura, the identified man who shot and killed 4 people, was a running back for 2 Southern California high school football teams. Tamura played 3 years at Golden Valley High School in Santa Clarita. He transferred to Granada Hills Charter School in the San Fernando Valley for his senior year. The 27-year-old Tamura fatally shot himself after his shooting rampage. A letter found in Tamura's pocket indicated he may have been looking for NFL personnel in the Manhattan office building. In his letter, Tamura blamed the NFL for his CTE symptoms, a brain disease linked to head trauma. In the letter, Tamura requested to have his brain examined after the autopsy. Monday's tragedy could have been a lot worse. Tamura took the wrong elevator while trying to find the NFL's offices. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., inviting you to join me weekdays at 12 noon, right after Tavis Smiley, here on KBLA Talk 1580. As a law school graduate and a theologian with a firm grasp of our body politic given almost 2 decades in Congress, my show is the fresh new home of an authentic, uncompromised quest for transformation and salvation, both personal and collectively, as I vigorously interrogate the theological and symbolic meanings embedded in our society. I promise to leverage my knowledge of history, theology, and both international and domestic issues to imagine an inclusive vision for the future, which I hope will inspire all of us to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as a given, not just an aspiration. So join me weekdays at 12 noon, right after Tavis Smiley, for 2 hours of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Your child is 18, and suddenly you no longer have legal access to their medical info, even in an emergency. No health decisions, no financial help, nothing, unless you plan ahead. That's why Trust and Will created the Young Adult Plan. It includes HIPAA authorization, healthcare directives, and power of attorney. Everything your child needs to stay protected and stay connected. Go to trustandwill.com and get your Young Adult Plan for just $69. Because turning 18 shouldn't mean cutting parents out of the picture. Trust and Will is an online estate planning service. See website for details.
Trust and Will.
Some things can steal your sunshine.
Ugh, I just got my hair done.
Sorry, the cooler's broken. Anyone see my flip-flops? Anyone?
But COVID-19 can steal a lot more. I just took a COVID test. Ugh. Prescription medications for COVID exist. If you test positive this summer, ask your doctor if they're right for you. Visit PfizerForAll.com/COVID-19 to learn more. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Yeah. At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time. Whenever news breaks, while we're on the air, it's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580. And we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. Thank you, thank you.
Downy Rinse and Refresh. Break up with stinky clothes.
Rinse it out.
Every now and then I get a little bit tired of the stinks that just will never come out.
Oh, Downy in the rinse change.
Every now and then I rinse it out. One wash and it delivers. One wash, it smells so clean. Downy Rinse and Refresh, it's a dream.
Downy Rinse and Refresh. Fights odor in just one wash. Guaranteed.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome to Wealthy Wednesdays with Dr. S. Todd Yeary, who is both a minister and a lawyer. He is a full-time pastor and a full-time practicing lawyer. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Man, you swing heavy on Wednesday, so I'm glad to hang out with you. You make me
And
better.
I see you done pulled over to a parking lot now. You no longer you decided not to hang around traffic, and I'm so grateful for that, knowing that you are somewhere safe. Hey, Doc, check this out. You're in and out of a courtroom every single day of the week. Every brother and sister in the courtroom, their case started with some form, particularly in criminal proceedings, some form of probable cause. They may not even be charged with the probable cause. They're charged with what the officer found later, or heard later, or observed later, or even because they were in there with their boy, they got charged with a conspiracy that they didn't know they were in when they were sitting there with their boy and in reasonable proximity to him. He got the gun. I ain't got no gun, but the gun is in the car with us. I'm now part of the conspiracy. This probable cause standard is something that is beginning to increasingly irritate me, not because I've had to deal with it in my own life. That's a significant motivation, but because it seems that Black bodies cannot escape it. We can't escape the trauma of it for our entire space. Gina says, for example, that Clarence Thomas means to let all of you all not have to worry about it no more. No more voting, no education, no health care, no redistricting. So y'all ain't got to worry about that no more, because we don't have no problem with you all being over on your side of town, in your community, where y'all can judge each other and won't be judged by nobody else. More probable cause, more presumption.
As your 17 years in Congress informs us, that the structure of the system, while it might look different, it pretty much functions the same. The type of hostility is a change in degree, not necessarily a change in substance. So the slave patrols going back to the 18th, 19th century, the fugitive slave laws in the South, that was the basis of the formation of kind of bounty hunters and the pre-version of what we now know to be policing. In the North, it was protection of property because you had property owners who controlled vast amounts of land that were outnumbered by the folks they held it in servitude. And so it made for a very delicate interaction. So policing, even in terms of what its function is historically, has been to reinforce that system that perpetuates the frustration that you've been talking about. Let's just be real clear about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But as you know, having been a member of Congress, you don't change the condition by talking at it, right? You've got to engage it. And even when the numbers don't appear to be in your favor, you keep coming back until you get the favorable numbers because it's always been a numbers game. We're dealing with the numbers game now with the Senate slight majority one way versus the other, the House slim one way or the other. Both sides somewhat suspect. If we look at the history of the parties, Lincoln Republicans, Lincoln gets credit for the Emancipation Proclamation. FDR gets credit for the New Deal. Lyndon Johnson gets credit for the Great Society. All of it just led to a rearranging of the chairs on the dance floor because the attitudes that were in play when it comes to racial hierarchy never went away. And so this notion of having a place where I am an equal, the Civil Rights Act of 1866 actually uses the word equality. This notion that we are trying to promote equity is changing the frame of the objective. We don't want equity, we want equality. And equality means that we've got to make up for some things. That's where reparations comes in, but reparations is a charged term. It sends folks into a frenzy, right? It's like calling a white person a racist. They lose their mind. You say reparations, you have to deal with this expressed internalized white guilt about, my grandparents owned slaves. That didn't affect me. Well, it depends. Show me the will, because you could put the property that you had in the will. Right, we've got this issue that we've got to work through. The problem becomes, and my metaphor is the monopoly game. The game is what the game is. The question is, how are we going to play it? And you can't win Monopoly if you're not going to pick a piece and roll the dice. And that means we've got to engage where we are, bring our frustration with us, bring our anger with us, bring our disgust with us. But as you mentioned before the last break, we got to do something. We've got to take an action, and that action has to be forward looking. It can't just be, I'm mad as hell and nothing else for it. That's called releasing, right? That has a place. But if we're not going to leave the next generation of young Black people, male and female, to have to deal with the same kind of frustration we're dealing with now, we've got to do something while we still have time on the clock.
I absolutely agree with what you just said. Listen, I have read hundreds of polls over the course of my life. Lots of polls, presidential polls, senatorial polls, congressional polls, state representative polls all the way down to the aldermanic level in the school board. Now, I know I only have about a minute and a half to say this, but I do want to say this. For that which Black men confront, all of the issues, the list of issues that you poll and people tell you how they feel about them, none of them deal with any of the things that peel back the onion for what confronts Black men, for what confronts them from womb to tomb. They just don't show up. If they don't even show up on the radar, then leadership can't even speak to it because people are concerned about eggs and bacon. Okay, they're concerned about an egg and bacon sandwich. But I'm telling you that every time a brother comes into contact with law enforcement or someone who prejudges or post-judges him, somehow you're not speaking to their issues, not you, but the proverbial you is not speaking to their issues until they come to terms with these young men in all of our communities are unpollable. They're not going to show up on the middle class poll. They're just not going to show up. And you have to peel the onion back to find out what's really on their mind, who really speaks for them. I heard some fascinating things from Governor Wes Moore the other day when he talked about the nature of racism and what it means for Black men. And I think he's onto something. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour is Dr. S. Todd Urey. When we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Lowe's knows big savings make a big difference, especially when you're shopping for appliances. Hurry in to get up to 30% off select major appliances. Plus, My Lowe's Rewards members get free delivery, free haul away, free installation and parts on purchases of $2,500 or more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 7/30. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Price, delivery time, and vehicle availability may vary based on order size and location. Exclusions apply. See Lowe's.com/delivery for more details.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest on Wealthy Wednesdays is none other than Dr. S. Todd Urey. Dr. Urey, you make us so rich on Wednesdays.
Listen, y'all in the wrong line then. I need you to go stand behind somebody that's got something in their purse other than their keys. But that's just me.
I appreciate you, Doc. Listen, I was listening very carefully to the KBLA commercial that just played a few moments ago.
Sir.
Why do we need a second autopsy?
Sir.
I don't want to go through the first autopsy. And that goes right to my point that someone determined that someone did not have the right to live. They got stopped or shot or wrongfully treated by a police officer that resulted in death. They had the first autopsy. Now they need the second autopsy. Why the hell did they stop the brother in the first place?
Yeah, let's go upstream. That whole commercial. Look, almost has me ready to go back and get in rush hour traffic and just sit there because I just can't figure it out. Listen, number one, why do we need the first?
Great commercial, by the way. I want to thank them for advertising their commercial.
Listen,
KBLA. But go ahead, Doc.
I got to go find it because I need to play it for my clergy and my law colleagues. Because I think it speaks to a frame of reference that is so decayed, so deficient, that number one, there's a taking of a life by the police. And when the autopsy is done, the autopsy determines cause and manner of death. It looks at injuries. It looks at a number of factors, right? It's an examination postmortem of the human body to determine what caused the death and how did that cause occur. It says then the first autopsy is presumed to be questionable, if not to the manner of death, the cause of death. And so you need a second examination to question the first one, because the first one is designed to create a justification for the taking of the life in the first place.
That the probable cause was okay in the first place. That the presumption of the officer was right in the first place. Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah. So let me, because you mentioned something in the previous segment. There is a United States Supreme Court case called Hine v. North Carolina. Driver driving down the street, he's got one tail light out, the other one works. Police officer pulls him over because he has one non-functioning tail light. That somehow leads to, after having the driver and the occupants get out of the car, a search of the vehicle. And the search of the vehicle allegedly leads to the recovery of some contraband, in this instance, drugs. And so the question becomes whether or not the arrest is valid. This Supreme Court, albeit without, Justice Brown Jackson, a few others, but certainly Justice Thomas, Justice Roberts, it's a Roberts Court decision. says literally, and actually Justice Thomas, I believe, wrote the opinion. A police officer who's supposed to enforce the law really doesn't have to know the law. He has to just reasonably believe that the law he's enforcing exists.
Which
Because
means
in North
that
Carolina, it
officer
is
brings,
not illegal to have one tail light out.
so that officer brings a bias to the out taillight.
He brings an entitlement. It's not just a bias. He brings an entitlement that says, I get to decide today what the law is going to be with anybody and everybody I choose to engage. And if I'm wrong, then what I do is I keep going until I find something that makes me right, and I rely on it. And so that's why when you're riding down the street with your homies, you're not doing anything, observing the rules of the road. They want to pull you over, some traffic infraction. You didn't stop long enough at a four-way stop. You pulled up past the little white line on the ground. Anything that gives them a basis to say a traffic infraction gives me the reasonable suspicion to pull you over. And then when you roll down the window, something about your conduct, something about your comment, something about something going on in the car, I smell something, I see something, I think I see something, and now I get to now go as far as I choose to go till I find what I want to find anyway. And oh, by the way, we do have instances where the things are not found. Hello.
Yeah.
Right? That's the issue, but that's also the motivation. We cannot cede any ground to that kind of malevolent conduct to go unchallenged. That's why, not just in terms of the voting, not just in terms of the civic, but in everything. We've got to resist it with everything in our core, lest we surrender to this madness, because we are quickly, as we're seeing in real time, this reversion back to days that we only read about in history books. And that's before they pulled the history books off the shelves.
So their entitlement led to a stop over a taillight that over the course of his observing the activity in the vehicle led to maybe an arrest and a subsequent felony. And now the only way you get your record cleared is if the governor of a state gives you a pardon, or the president gives you a pardon, if you can get through to him to give you a pardon. So your whole life is tied to a bulb that was out, that was the probable cause for the stop in the first place, and it determines whether or not your son or your daughter will respect you, or what could happen to you in prison, or the idea of getting a job or getting employment or going to a higher education. And whatever the course of your life was, it was determined that a bad taillight created a different trajectory. I'm struggling with that, Doc. I know we only have 2 minutes. Let me give you this word of hope. I got to
Let
pray.
me drop this real quick. Let me talk about a different light, because they're gonna stop you because of tail lights or broken exposure, stuff that's observable. Very often in the church, we invoke part of Paul's benediction in Ephesians 3. Now unto the one who is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we can ask or imagine, and then we jump into a frenzy. But we got to finish reading it. The next phrase is important. That the divine is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all we can ask or imagine, according to the power, the light that is within us. We got to use the light within, so that when they try to punish us for the light outside that they don't like, we continue to resist with the divine imperative that we do not give up until we get justice. Go shine on the world and make a difference.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Wealthy Wednesdays with Dr. S. Todd Yeary. 1 foot in the pulpit, 1 foot in the courtroom. He is simply the man. Thank you for the word of hope, Dr. Yuri.
Good to be with you. No beef liver, though.
I love you very much. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Until next time.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIA